Hello, my name's Amy Howard. I'm a 23-year-old graduate from UWE Bristol with a degree in photography. I love the National Trust. Having grown up being taken to the National Trust properties, I'm now the proud owner of my own membership card, and I regularly visit my local National Trust property, Tintsfield, throughout the year. I love everything National Trust stands for: conservation, bringing history to life, inclusivity, and being forever for everyone. Now, for this job, I know you're looking for someone who can find and tell a good story that engages people. So let me tell you one. I'm going to take you back to the early 1920s and to a place near my hometown in Oxford. Now remember, this was a time very different to the one we live in now. Women didn't have the right to vote, and society's attitudes were far more conservative, where scandals could have seen you outcast. We're talking about a man named James Lees Milne, better known as Jim, who had just finished his degree in history at Oxford. He'd been befriended by a man named Harold Nicolson and his wife Vita, who managed to get him a job working at the National Trust, which at the time was 40 years old but had as few as 5,000 members. Now his job was to travel across the country and visit wealthy families who owned mansions, castles and grand halls, and convince them to donate their stately home to the National Trust. Imagine Jim on his rusty old bicycle cycling down the long driveway of his stately home as the mansion house comes into view before him, knowing he was about to try and convince its owner to give it to the trust. Can you imagine how he would have been feeling? This would have been quite a task, convincing wealthy families to leave their beautiful family homes that have been around for centuries to a charity. Now Jim was not only handsome, but persuasive and patient. Slowly but surely, stately homes passed into the trust's ownership. But all was not as it seemed. Jim was harbouring a secret that could have caused great scandal, and at the time would have even had him arrested if anyone found out. Harold Nicolson, who I mentioned earlier, was not just a friend that landed him a job, but also his lover. Now, not only was his wife Vita fully aware of this, she had agreed to the arrangement because she was having an affair with Harold's sister. Their marriage was very unusual at the time, but it wouldn't have seemed odd to Jim, whose parents had also had a similar arrangement. Over the years, Jim would come to have various love interests, including both men and women. His lovers including Tom Mitford, brother of the infamous Mitford sisters, one of whom he later dated, Colonial Secretary Alan Lennox Boyd, and his great love, the conservationist Rick Stuart Jones. Years later, he would shock his friends by announcing his engagement to Alvide Chaplain, a wealthy heiress who was still married when Jim met her. Every part of Jim's life, and every person in it, seems to hold a scandalous past. Even the woman he was set to marry had strange beginnings, having been named after her father's mistress as a constant reminder of his wrongdoings. In her younger years, she was romantically involved with the Princess Winnie de Polignac of Paris. The princess was 45 years older than her. Jim spent the rest of his life crisscrossing the country, persuading more and more families to donate their stately home to the trust. But I wonder, did his personal life ever spill over into his work? Were there whispered secrets and hallways of great manners? Was scandal ever just around the corner? Or was his secret really kept a secret? So, I'm fully aware that this is not the typical kind of story that you would have on the podcast, or that would even necessarily appeal to the usual demographic of National Trust members. However, I know that the National Trust is really trying to engage more and more young people, and that your director, Hilary McGrady, is really hot on diverse thinking and inclusivity. I'm a young person and I'm passionate about the Trust, and this is what I would bring to the role. I'm going to spend the next few minutes briefly talking through why I'd be a good fit for the role and the kind of experiences that I have that would set me apart from other candidates. So, during my time at university, we had to undertake many extra tasks alongside our studies, and one of these was to fundraise nearly £16,000 in order to hold our degree show in London. There was a group of about 40 of us, and I was on the board of several organisational committees as well as heading up various fundraising groups. My most notable achievement whilst working towards completing my studies was holding an evening of artist talks at the Royal Photographic Society in Bristol. I spent several weeks negotiating with the RPS, organising, planning, and then on the evening I was the host. I introduced who we were, why we were there, presenting these talks, and why they should come to our show in London. 5 of my peers who I selected gave a 10-minute presentation on the projects that they had been doing in their final year, and it was a glimpse of what would be at our show in London. At the end of the 5 talks, I hosted a live Q&A session where we invited the audience to ask anything they wanted. After I graduated, I undertook a 3-month internship at Burnt Soul in Bristol, which is a festival fashion wear brand specialising in lycra catsuits. My main role there was a content creator, and I specialised in making videos for their social platforms. Each video I shot for their social media would be planned out on a storyboard, tested and then shot and directed by me, all in the space of about a week. Most notably, I shot, directed and edited a brand collaboration sponsored by GHD that was used in some of their online Boots advertising. There were models, hairstylists and makeup artists all on set, and we had numerous looks to shoot all in one day and a 1-week turnaround deadline, which was thankfully met with time to spare. So, why should you give me the job? Well, I hope you can see that I'm a really passionate person and I'm really passionate about the trust and all of the wonderful properties. I'm a new graduate and I have fresh perspective on what attracts young people and how to really engage them and have them interact with the brand. The story I told you was new to me up until yesterday. I'm a good researcher and I know how to tell a strange story that really interests people. And finally, because I have years of experience in customer-facing roles, I can easily communicate with anyone from customers, colleagues and members of the public. I really hope you've enjoyed my little virtual CV that I filmed for you, and I do hope to hear from you soon.